Joining us here today on Primetime Local News is Mayor Gerald Aalbers. Mr. Mayor, I just want to start by getting your overall reaction to the recent gun legislation passed by the federal government last week.
Well, it's very interesting legislation. It's challenging in some ways. I understand what the federal government is trying to get to, but the legislation, I think, this is a couple different beats, and it affects a lot of our local people. And I think there's a lot of concern in the community, from what I've heard already, about being law-abiding gun owners. And it seems like that it's been directed towards law-abiding gun owners rather than dealing with the issues at hand.
You mentioned already that you're hearing stuff from residents about this. Is it the possibility of them giving up their firearms that's been their concern, or what specifically are some of their main worries with this legislation now passed?
Their concern is, they're going to be questioning themselves as to, are we doing everything legally? They've bought gun safes, they've went through the training, they've acquired the appropriate certificates and the information that the guns are registered, and they just are concerned, what's the next step? And I think that I can certainly understand that, because there's a lot of confusion. We've heard discussions from the Prime Minister and from the Government of Canada saying that they're going to leave it to the municipalities, and then the province steps in and says, by law, municipalities report to the province. That's why we're here, is through their jurisdiction. So there's jurisdictional issues that start to come up, and at the end of the day, is crime going to be reduced? And I think that's an important aspect that we hear about on a regular basis in the community from that perspective. So there's challenges on all sides here, and we haven't gained a whole lot, I'm afraid.
Now, Scott Moe did address this issue. He said last week that the province did put in their own legislation to prevent municipalities setting their own gun laws. And with Lloyd being in a unique situation with being Alberta and Saskatchewan, do you think down the road you could see yourself potentially making a decision in regards to this?
Well, I think that I understand. I was just following some news items this morning, and the government of Alberta has introduced, or in the processes of introducing, legislation similar to Saskatchewan that leaves it in their realm from that perspective. So I think it's going to be an issue that we won't likely have to deal with as a municipality, either in Saskatchewan or Alberta, because I suspect both provinces are going to be very similar legislation from their perspective. And this is likely going to end up in the courts, I'm sure, because there's other provinces involved. This is not just the province of Saskatchewan or Alberta, it's a national, it's the federal government setting out legislation, and municipalities may choose. And certainly I understand it's different in every community. So the larger the community, there's a different perspective to people owning guns. I think in this community, we know there's a lot of people that hunt, target shoot. We have some very interesting people that do a great job of target shooting, and that's what they enjoy doing. And now they're going to be put into that perspective as well, potentially. So there's a lot of challenges that that relates here, and I don't think it's a municipal responsibility that needs to be dealt with at our level. This is at the national level, and they're going to have to figure that one out.
Now, have you heard much from the Lloydminster RCMP about this subject? And if so, what are some things that they've been saying?
We haven't, and actually we get reports from the RCMP on a monthly basis, as well as the inspector has made an appearance to council on a quarterly basis. And certainly that'll come up in the next meeting, I'm sure, in public, so that the public hears what the RCMP have to say. I think they are addressing crime on a regular basis in our community. With Alert coming, that will be an additional support mechanism that's going to be in place in our community to strengthen our community. It takes a community to be safe. If you see crime, we need to ask people to report it. If you've been a victim of crime, report it. Without that information, that's critical. If you see something going on, call Crime Stoppers or report it to Crime Stoppers. Or if you're witnessing crime, call 911 and ask the RCMP to get involved immediately. That's what they're there for, and they protect our city and provide that safety. In the same token, there's multiple pieces beyond the simple crime that happens today. That's the judicial system, and that involves the provincial and federal governments. And there's many moving pieces to this puzzle. And as we can see, there's been various points being pointed. And I think there's a bigger overhaul that needs to be done, but that will be left to the provincial and federal governments.
Is this an issue or topic that will be discussed maybe further down the road at City Council?
The concern I have is, as every bylaw that our city proposes, that comes with an enforcement factor, and that's just one more bylaw that would be piled onto our folks that would likely be challenged constitutionally. And as I said, I believe there's going to be constitutional challenges as it is, as these start to appear. I think I'd like to avoid our city being in the courtroom trying to defend a bylaw that may not stand up from that perspective. And I think that the residents, there's going to be residents that feel both strongly one way or another on this issue. But I think that because of jurisdiction and the position that they're in, it may come to council to answer that question. We'll deal with it accordingly at council, but I haven't had my phone ringing off the hook demanding that we bring a bylaw forward yet. So,
Mayor Aalbers, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us today.